So it's very interesting. When I have discussions with clients or just other collectors, speculators, investors operating in the antiques and collectibles trade, a lot of them think that eBay is still one of the dominant forces in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. Believe it or not, this is patently false. eBay lost a lot of their dominance in the antiques and collectibles trade over the course of several decades. Now, in order to do this video justice, we have to get in my DeLorean time machine and we have to go back to September of 1995. September of 1995 is when eBay first premiered on the scene. Believe it or not, back then they were known as Auction Web. The name eBay did not come into existence until 1997. Now, the reason why we're having this discussion is because it's the end of the year and eBay just put out their annual Collect It report. That's nothing more than an unofficial newsletter that just highlights the trends that helped shape the global collecting marketplace from their perspective. And I'm going to put a link to this newsletter in the video description below. But as part of this newsletter, what they do is eBay every year, they reveal the top 10 most searched collecting terms for the year in question. So now, since we're almost in the year 2026, we have the data available for the year 2025. So in this video, I am going to go through and I am going to reveal the top 10 most searched collectible terms of the year 2025, and we're going to talk about this. But before we get to that, you guys have got to realize that back in 1995, when eBay came on the scene, they dominated the antiques and collectibles trade simply because there was very little other competition out there because the internet was pretty much brand new. Now, to be fair, eBay had their own direct competitors at the time. There was Yahoo Auctions. There were some small upstarts that were trying to take a bite out of eBay's business plan. But overall, eBay had the edge simply because they had the backing of both Silicon Valley and also, within the first few years, Wall Street took an interest in their business model. Now, this is what led to the rise of the dot-com bubble. If you don't know what the dot-com bubble was, this was a period from roughly 1995 all the way up through March of 2000, where a lot of companies that transitioned to becoming internet e-commerce platforms got the attention of Wall Street, and as a result, they got millions of dollars in cash, and their valuations were based on nothing but Fugazi. If you don't believe me, look up companies like Pets.com, eToys, and Webvan.com. Those are three notable failures that came out of the dot-com bubble crash that had the blessing of Wall Street. They had millions of dollars in funding, and they still failed simply because this was a period in time where all you had to do was take a company public, call it whatever the company name is, add .com to it, and now all of a sudden your company was worth millions upon millions of dollars, even if you had no sales to show for it. It was an insane period of time. Now, obviously, we know today, eBay was one of the winners from the dot-com era. They survived the dot-com crash. PayPal survived the dot-com crash. Another great company that you probably heard of that also survived the dot-com crash, Amazon.com, and also to a lesser extent, Netflix. Netflix came a little later, but they were prominent in surviving and thriving through the dot-com crash. And that's also an interesting case study because I don't know if a lot of you guys realize this. Blockbuster had a chance to purchase Netflix outright, and they pretty much bungled it because they thought that they could compete with Netflix and take them head on. Well, we know how that played out because most of us watching this right now, we all have Netflix subscriptions. We no longer know where our Blockbuster video membership card got to. I have no idea where mine is at present time. So you could see how that panned out. Now, what does this have to do with eBay? Well, it's very interesting because most people that are active in the antiques and collectibles trade today, especially the younger set, that collect Pokemon cards, a lot of pop culture collecting categories. They don't know of the era that existed before the internet came into the equation. And this is very important because Sotheby's, Christie's, Heritage Auctions, Hakes Auctions, a lot of these prominent auction companies that you know and love, they were in business during the dot-com era. They were in business in 1995 when eBay came along and stole some of their thunder. The difference is they were already operating from a healthy standpoint in the antiques and collectibles trade without having to adopt right away to the internet. Meaning, a company like Sotheby's, a company like Christie's, a lot of people that utilized their services were already part of the high-end tier of the antiques and collectibles trade. Sotheby's, Christie's, Heritage, Hakes, in the beginning of the e-commerce era, they didn't have to have a website to continue functioning. They already had dominance in those markets to the collectors and investors and dealers that already used their services. So this allowed eBay to come on the scene, and eBay started to attract the casual collector, the person that went to flea markets, the person that went to garage sales, the person that had a stand maybe at the farmer's market and sold whatever antique or collectible they fancied. These were the early adopters that jumped on the eBay ship when it first arrived. Case in point, a lot of people don't know this. If you go and you use any of the way back machines and you look at how eBay looked back in the mid to late 1990s, you're going to notice that eBay had over 30,000 collecting categories at one time devoted to the entire antiques and collectibles trade. The antiques and collectibles trade is what put eBay on the map. Now, this is very vital to understand because literally right around 2004, 2005, eBay switched gears. The dot-com bubble already crashed. There was less interest in antiques and collectibles, and this would extend up through the great financial crisis that would start right around 2006, 2007, and lead to the bubble bursting in 2008, 2009 with bailouts and everything else. So at this point, antiques and collectibles became less popular. eBay ended up in a bloody price war with Amazon because what was happening was eBay was now losing revenue. I don't want to say that they were losing money. They were not, but they were losing revenue because now a lot of these other auction companies, whether it be Heritage, Sotheby's, Christie's, Hakes, Morphy's, all had an online presence. So what happened was eBay got slapped in the face with a stale donut with extended competition in these markets. And they looked at Amazon being their primary competitor. It was in the early 2000s, those of you that were there, where eBay started to transition to distributor closeouts. They started to attract general merchandise on the site, not just antiques and collectibles. And that's when eBay really started to change. Now, interestingly enough, in right around 2017, 2018, all the way through the pandemic, because of the popularity of certain collecting categories at that point, and the government infusion of cash into the economy, eBay became popular once again, especially during the pandemic. So in today's day and age, eBay is literally trying to transition back to their roots in the antiques and collectibles trade. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. If we look at the market that eBay caters to at present time, it is the lower to mid range of the antiques and collectibles trade. And more specifically, eBay likes to focus on mass-produced modern era collectibles. This is their bread and butter. I'll prove it to you. We just went through a massive speculative frenzy and are still going through this frenzy with modern era Pokemon cards. All these people are storming GameStop, Walmart, Target. They're buying all this modern era product and they're flipping it right away on the secondary market. what platform are they using to flip this stuff onto? They're using eBay. eBay is geared more towards the lower end market of the antiques and collectibles trade. It's geared more towards the casual collector, the speculator, the reseller who's going to flea markets. Maybe he stumbles upon a Nintendo and 10 games. He takes it home, tests it, clean it, and he flips it right on eBay. This is what eBay is known for. Now, you have to keep this in mind because anytime we go through a top 10 list of the most searched collectible terms for the year, it's going to reflect this market in tandem. Now, this is important because obviously a lot of my audience has not been living under a rock the last 365 days. You know, through almost every video that I put out, that the most popular collecting categories in the antiques and collectibles trade right now center around trading cards. Whether it's sports cards, Pokemon cards, or heaven forbid, graded trading cards. So now we're going to go through and I'm going to reveal the top 10 most searched collectible terms for the year 2025 according to eBay. So number 1, this should come as no surprise, was Pokemon. Number 2 is Pokemon cards. Number 3 is Lego. Number 4 is PSA 10. Number 5 is PSA. Number 6 is Lego Star Wars. Number 7 is going to surprise some of you, and we are going to comment on this a little bit. It's actually Hot Wheels. Number 8 is Pokemon PSA 10. Number 9 is Michael Jordan. And number 10 is football cards. Now, interestingly enough, 7 out of these 10 searchable terms all are related to trading cards in some manner, whether it be graded cards, whether it be Pokemon outright, or whether it be Michael Jordan, football cards, another segment of the sports card market. Now, this leaves Lego, Lego Star Wars, and Hot Wheels. So let's talk about these markets individually. eBay is very good for modern era mass-produced collectibles that can easily be flipped for a profit. So it's not only Pokemon that is the subject of this. When we look at Lego, when we look at Lego Star Wars specifically, for many years now, there have been people that have been buying and hoarding factory-sealed Lego sets and flipping them on the secondary market when they go off market, meaning when they go into retirement. This is nothing new. These key words prove that this market is still a thing. Now, when it comes to Hot Wheels, this is where I get a lot of questions. Sean, I don't understand why in the year 2025, heading into 2026, is Hot Wheels on this list. Who is collecting Hot Wheels cars? Well, this is where I got to give you guys a history lesson. For those unaware, Hot Wheels were marketed by Mattel and first premiered in 1968. Hot Wheels are a very popular collecting category amongst Gen Xers. I myself am a Gen Xer. I was born in 1976. Matter of fact, in the last 48 hours, I just turned 49 years of age. Now, to qualify as a Gen Xer, you would have had to have been born between the years 1965 and 1980. If you were born between those years, especially given the fact that Hot Wheels debuted it in 1968 as a very cheap children's toy, chances are you grew up playing with Hot Wheels cars. Now, interestingly enough, in the 1980s, in the 1990s, Mattel wanted to really reignite interest in this brand because the brand was getting stale. The brand was already in existence at this time for several decades. And what they did was they started to utilize mass-produced scarcity. They started to inject treasure hunts, chase cars into the mix, where if you were lucky enough to show up at a retailer when they were restocking the shelves, you might be able to buy one of these quote-unquote scarce cars that you would be able to flip on the secondary market for a premium. To this very day, Hot Wheels is still using a slight variation of that formula. As a result, Gen Xers are still going after Hot Wheels cars as a collectible. That's why it hit the list. Now, if you're going to come to me and you're going to go, well, Sean, I want to invest over the long term in vintage Hot Wheels cars. I would tell you to steer clear of this market. Because when we look at the trends of younger collectors, meaning millennials and even younger generations after that, they're not gravitating towards Hot Wheels cars like Gen Xers were. So this is a market that you have to be cautious of, even though it dominates this list. This is why when we look at lists like this, you have to take them with a grain of salt, and you also have to understand where eBay's place is in the overall collectibles market at present time. eBay is geared predominantly towards casual collectors, starry-eyed speculators, and also resellers that tend to focus on mass-produced modern era collectibles. And this is what makes lists like this so dangerous. And I can prove this to you. Because if we get in my DeLorean time machine again, and we go back to the year 1996 or 1997, you want to know what you would see on a list like this? Beanie Babies, Pogs, Pez dispensers, calling cards. Believe it or not, there was a craze back in the day where collectible calling cards were a very hot commodity on the collectibles market. You would also see modern era Power of the Force 2 Star Wars figures that were big in the mid to late 1990s. That would also dominate this list. So you really have to pay attention to this trend so that you guys understand a lot of people that are reading this list, they're putting a lot of these collectibles away in factory sealed condition. That's what makes information like this so dangerous. This is why I spend so much time trying to educate the hardcore modern era Pokemon collector who comes into my comment section and says, Sean, you don't understand. Pokemon's going to always be popular. All these items are going to be worth money going forward. I'm here to tell you, when you see a list like this that is dominated by Pokemon and also even PSA 10 condition modern era Pokemon cards, you really need to use caution if you are investing in these items over the long term. Case in point, if I would ever do a video where I pull a history of all of these lists over the last 20 years, you would see that most of the items that monopolize these lists never ever were worth much on the secondary market in the decades to follow. And that's what's very interesting about this. These lists really reveal a lot about the lower end of the antiques and collectibles trade. But they do not reveal what is happening on the higher end of the trade because eBay is no longer relevant in that part of the marketplace. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you want to see more videos like this? Do you want me to do more information about the infancy of eBay and other auction platforms with the advent of the internet? Let me know your thoughts. Until then, I just might see you in another upcoming video.